Today we dive into one of the most captivating chapters of ancient history, the Second Punic War, fought between 218 and 202 BC. This conflict not only reshaped the destiny of two powerful civilizations, but also set the stage for Rome's emergence as the dominant power of the Mediterranean. Our story is a blend of relentless ambition, extraordinary military genius, and the high stakes of political rivalry. In this narrative, we follow the dramatic events that led Carthage to seek revenge, the strategic brilliance of its generals, and the resolute determination of Rome in the face of overwhelming odds. The war was sparked by a deep-seated desire within Carthage to restore its lost pride after earlier humiliations endured at the hands of Rome. Carthage's expansion in Spain provided the fertile ground from which its ambitions grew. Over time, political rivalries and military innovations merged, setting the historical stage for encounters across rugged terrains, bustling cities, and treacherous mountain passes. Throughout our journey, you will discover how strategic decisions and military tactics evolved as leaders on both sides tried to outthink and outmaneuver one another. Our exploration will trace every significant aspect of the conflict, from Carthage's daring campaigns in Spain to Hannibal's legendary march into Italy, and finally, to Rome's decisive counteroffensives. By the end, you will not only understand the sequence of battles and maneuvers, but also the human emotions and ambitions that drove each decision. I invite you on this comprehensive and relatable adventure through the triumphs and tragedies of an era that forever altered the world's course. Carthage's ambitions reached far beyond the narrow confines of its home territory, and its expansion in Spain was fueled by both economic necessity and a burning desire for retribution. After Rome seized Sardinia and Corsica and exacted a heavy indemnity in 238 BC, Carthage's leading faction, guided by the formidable Hamilcar Barca, sought to mend the wounds inflicted by previous defeats. Venturing into the rich lands of Spain, Hamilcar envisioned a new era for Carthage, one marked by the expansion of territory, the enrichment of the treasury through Spanish silver mines, and the creation of an army capable of challenging Roman might. Throughout this period, indigenous Iberian groups fiercely resisted Carthaginian domination, forcing the leadership to extend their influence through both military might and shrewd diplomacy. Hamilcar's campaigns gradually subdued many of the Spanish tribes, and his successes laid the groundwork for a well-organized military force loyal to the Barcid family. The capture of territories in Spain was not merely an act of aggression, but also a strategic maneuver to generate revenue, consolidate power, and secure vital resources that would later prove essential in prolonged conflicts. This expansion, however, came at a price. The aggressive moves in Spain alarmed other powers in the region, notably the Greeks of Massalia and her colonies, whose trade networks and independence were threatened. These rising tensions among the regional powers would soon have far-reaching consequences, drawing Rome into an increasingly complex web of alliances and enmities. The seeds of discord were sown early, and the stage was being set for a conflict that would engulf the Mediterranean basin. Carthage's endeavors in Spain, marked by fiscal ambition and territorial conquest, not only redefined its own destiny, but also inadvertently provoked the ire of Rome, a wrath that would lead to one of history's most extraordinary wars. At the heart of Carthaginian expansion in Spain was the formidable leadership of the Barcid dynasty. Hamilcar Barca, a veteran of earlier conflicts such as the Mercenary War, left behind an indelible mark on Carthaginian strategy. His vision was carried forward after his death in 229 BC by his son-in-law, Hasdrubal. Hasdrubal built upon Hamilcar's legacy, consolidating Carthage's power in Iberia by founding the crucial town of New Carthage. This strategic city became a vital hub of Carthaginian influence and a repository for the wealth generated by the Spanish silver mines. The Barcid regime, enjoying a near-royal status in Spain, acted with considerable independence from the Carthaginian home government, further fueling its ambition to challenge Rome. The era soon witnessed the rise of one of history's most renowned military commanders, Hannibal. Appointed to command in 221 BC after the assassination of Hasdrubal, Hannibal inherited not only the legacy of the Barcids, but also an army hardened by years of campaigning in challenging Spanish terrains. With undeniable determination, Hannibal resolved to tip the balance in favor of Carthage by confronting Roman power head-on. I saw firsthand the fire in Hannibal's eyes, a blend of youthful audacity and steely resolve. I knew then that he was destined to redefine the art of warfare with tactics that would echo through the ages. As Hannibal prepared to assume the mantle of leadership, his bold decision to target the city of Saguntum set events in motion that would irrevocably alter the course of the conflict. By provoking Rome through his siege of Saguntum, Hannibal not only demonstrated his strategic brilliance, but also ignited a spark of war that would soon engulf the Mediterranean. His actions underscored a critical shift from a war of territorial grudges to a confrontation marked by grand, audacious moves that could change empires. Diplomacy and military tension, often intertwined, played a crucial role in escalating the conflict. As Carthage extended its tentacles over the Iberian Peninsula, the Greeks of Massalia and neighboring coastal colonies like Emporia and Rhodes grew increasingly alarmed. Their long-standing commercial interests and regional sovereignty were at risk due to Carthage's unchecked expansion. In an effort to maintain a delicate balance of power, the Romans intervened at an early stage. In 226 BC, a treaty was brokered with Hasdrubal, which strictly limited Carthaginian military movements north of the river Ebro. However, it was not long before the situation escalated further. Rome's strategic interest widened when it formed a defensive alliance with Saguntum, a Spanish town that lay south of the Ebro, yet was not under Carthaginian control. The vibrant city of Saguntum became the flashpoint of conflict, largely due to its symbolic importance and strategic location. In 219 BC, Hannibal used a local dispute between Saguntum and his Spanish allies as a pretext for laying siege to the city. For 8 grueling months, the inhabitants of Saguntum endured a relentless barrage and blockade, while Hannibal's forces steadily tightened their grip. The siege was not just a military operation, it symbolized Carthage's desperate bid to assert its dominance and redraw the regional power map. When a Roman embassy arrived demanding the surrender of Hannibal and his staff as a means of averting war, the Carthaginian Senate, influenced by an anti-Roman sentiment, accepted responsibility for Hannibal's actions. Rome's response was swift and uncompromising, a clear declaration of war that resonated beyond the boundaries of Italy. The siege of Saguntum, with its mixture of political brinkmanship and military aggression, thus became a pivotal moment in the build-up to a full-scale conflict between Rome and Carthage. Rome's reaction to Carthaginian aggression was driven by a potent mix of national pride and the desire to avenge previous humiliations. The memory of the First Punic War and the loss of maritime supremacy weighed heavily on Roman minds, prompting them to ensure that their response was both swift and strategically sound. Determined to restore their reputation and safeguard their interests, the Romans devised a plan that involved 2 major military campaigns. One force, commanded by Publius Cornelius Scipio, was directed to Spain to contain Hannibal by cutting off his reinforcements. Simultaneously, another force under Tiberius Sempronius was assembled in Sicily, with plans to eventually launch an invasion of Africa, the heartland of Carthaginian power. The Roman strategy was built on the fundamental advantage of naval supremacy. Carthage, weakened by the destruction of its once mighty fleet during the First Punic War, could no longer challenge Rome at sea. As a result, the Romans leveraged their maritime dominance to support operations on multiple fronts, ensuring that Carthaginian movements were countered effectively. Behind the scenes, Rome's political system and its willingness to delegate military authority through proconsuls and propraetors enabled sustained campaigns over several years, even in the wake of severe losses such as those at Cannae. The determination of Rome was not based solely on military might. It was a testament to the resilience of a society that had learned to adapt its strategies in the face of adversity. As the Romans mobilized fresh contingents and restructured their command hierarchy, a focused and multi-pronged approach emerged that would eventually swing the momentum of the conflict. The careful balancing of decisive action in Spain with preparations in Africa underscored Rome's commitment to a total victory, setting the stage for a transformative period in its history. Hannibal's campaign is one of the most dramatic military maneuvers in history. With meticulous planning and unwavering determination, He set out from New Carthage in the spring of 218 BC, launching an expedition that would take him and his army on a perilous journey over mountains, plains, and hostile territories. His goal was not merely to raid or pillage, it was to force Rome into a conflict on unfamiliar terrain, where his innovative tactics could disrupt the Roman way of war. Crossing the Pyrenees required every bit of the cunning that Hannibal possessed. His forces, consisting of battle-hardened Spaniards and agile Numidians, advanced under constant threat from local tribes and the challenges of rugged terrain. The journey through southern Gaul was fraught with natural obstacles, yet Hannibal's leadership shone through as his men overcame harsh weather, dwindling supplies, and the ever-present menace of ambush. Perhaps the most legendary part of his campaign was the grueling passage over the Alps. Many believed that such a feat was impossible due to treacherous paths, frigid temperatures, and the logistical nightmare of transporting elephants and heavy equipment. In the midst of this struggle, I felt a deep admiration. I stood in awe as I witnessed how every hardship forged the resolve of Hannibal's troops. I personally experienced the raw emotion and bravery that radiated from each soldier as they pressed on despite the merciless cold and daunting mountain passes. The toll was significant. Numerous soldiers perished along the way, and most of the war elephants succumbed to the environment. Yet, Hannibal's tactical brilliance and sheer determination allowed him to arrive in northern Italy with a force that, though diminished, burned with the fervor of a revived cause. His unexpected entry into the Italian peninsula destabilized Roman expectations and set a new, dangerous precedent. The dramatic march, full of sacrifice and tenacity, left an indelible mark on history and ensured that the war's next chapter would be fought with extraordinary ferocity on Italian soil. Once inside Italy, Hannibal's strategy was to exploit the element of surprise and provoke decisive engagements with Roman forces. His first encounter came along the banks of the river Ticinus, where his well-drilled cavalry clashed with Roman units. This early skirmish, though not a full-scale battle, signaled Hannibal's intent to disrupt the established order and force the Romans onto unfamiliar ground. The subsequent battles only deepened the crisis for Rome. In December of 218 BC, Hannibal engaged Roman forces at the Trebia River, an encounter that proved to be brutally decisive. Hannibal's well-coordinated maneuvers on the battlefield, combined with his flexible tactical thinking, allowed his smaller force to deliver a crushing blow to the Romans. Just a year later, the ambush at Lake Trasimene in 217 BC showcased his adept use of terrain and deception, leaving Roman legions reeling from unexpected losses. Perhaps the most devastating of all was the Battle of Cannae in 216 BC. Here, Hannibal demonstrated what many have called his masterpiece in military strategy. In a meticulously planned double envelopment maneuver, his forces encircled and decimated a numerically superior Roman army, resulting in unprecedented casualties and shaking the very foundations of Roman resolve. The terror that spread across Italy after Cannae not only led to defections among Roman allies, but also forced the Republic to reconsider its methods of warfare and alliance building. Each of these battles, while brilliant in tactical execution, also carried heavy political and strategic ramifications that would eventually shape the broader war effort and the destiny of the Italian peninsula. As the conflict matured, the focus gradually shifted from Italy to Africa, where Rome sought to strike at the heart of Carthaginian power. General Scipio, later honored with the name Africanus, led a daring invasion of Carthaginian territories in North Africa. The brilliant maneuvering and bold decision-making on both sides culminated in the climactic confrontation at Zama in 22 BC, where Hannibal's tactics, though formidable, could not overcome the well-coordinated Roman strategy bolstered by superior cavalry forces. The Battle of Zama was not just a military engagement, it was the definitive moment when the scales finally tipped in favor of Rome. As the dust settled, the Carthaginians were compelled to accept harsh peace terms. They surrendered nearly all their territories, agreed to pay a massive indemnity, and were forbidden from waging war without Rome's consent. This decisive outcome dismantled the Carthaginian Empire and ensured that Rome would remain the preeminent power in the Western Mediterranean for generations to come. Reflecting on the legacy of the Second Punic War, I see a story that is as much about human resilience as it is about strategy and power. The sacrifices on both sides, the triumphs and the tragedies, continue to serve as a reminder of the turbulent but profoundly transformative nature of conflict. I, along with H and countless others who have studied these events, remain forever intrigued by the blend of ambition, courage, and fate that defined this epic war. In sharing these insights, our aim is to offer a clear, relatable perspective on the events that shaped ancient history and ultimately gave rise to Rome's enduring legacy.